You've found your way here again, quiet, alone, and just curious enough to keep watching. Don't worry, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Tonight's theme is simple and recent. The scariest true stories from this summer. Not legends, not old campfire tales, but what happened under this same sky just weeks ago. These stories come from places that still feel warm to the touch, crowded campgrounds that went silent overnight, highways that never should have gone dark, a beach that swallowed its own fire, each one a reminder that summer isn't just for sunlight. Sometimes it burns in other ways. You've heard horror before. But these are the ones people don't like to remember, because they still could. If you listen closely, you'll feel it too, and know that thin heat in the back of your neck. The part of you that knows something's wrong even before it happens. Most people watch these stories, get that shiver, and move on. They forget to subscribe. But you stay, don't you? Tell me, what time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. I like knowing who's still awake when these go live. Now settle in. The air's still warm, but the night's already colder than it should be. Here are tonight's encounters. The forest was already too quiet when we got there. You don't notice silence at first, not until you realize you can hear your own breathing louder than the trees. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of gravel under our tires as we pulled into the small clearing the ranger had marked as Site 9. It was supposed to be a 3-day camping trip. Me, Dylan, Harper, and my girlfriend Mia. We'd driven out to Oregon's Mount Hood National Forest because Harper had read online that this site sat right between 2 abandoned trails. No crowds, no other campers, just miles of pine and peace, except it didn't feel peaceful. It felt empty. Even while we were setting up, I kept glancing toward the tree line. There was this faint shimmer in the air like heat waves, even though the sun was dropping and the air was getting cold. Every time I looked straight at it, it stopped. Dylan noticed me staring and laughed. Dude, relax. It's just forest haze, maybe it was. But when I started hammering the stakes into the dirt, I swore I heard a whisper right behind me, like someone exhaling my name. I spun around. Just trees. Mia was unrolling the sleeping bags inside the tent, humming something off-key. I forced myself to focus on her voice. It was normal. It was safe. By sunset, the fire was going, and we were passing around cans of beer and talking about random stuff. Work, old high school stories, anything but the silence pressing in around us. When Harper joked that she wanted to go for a night walk, we all groaned. Come on, she said, standing up and grabbing her flashlight. There's a lake like half a mile that way. The beam of her light vanished fast between the trees. Mia shook her head. No way, we just got here. Let's stay by the fire tonight. Dylan leaned back against a log. If she gets eaten by a bear, I'm taking her sleeping bag. I called dibs. We laughed and real laughter, but it didn't echo. That's when I realized something weird. The sound just died the second it left our circle. No echo, no carry, nothing. Even when I said hello, toward the trees, there was no bounce back, just dead air. Harper returned 10 minutes later, pale. There's something wrong with the woods, she said. We laughed again, thinking she was messing with us. But she sat down hard by the fire and said, I mean it. I heard someone walking behind me. I turned around and it stopped. Then I took another step and I heard it again, like it was copying me. Step for step, Mia frowned. Probably an animal. No, these were footsteps, like shoes on dirt. Dylan tossed another log on the fire and shrugged it off. Then congrats, you met Bigfoot. But Harper didn't laugh. She just stared at the flames, hugging her knees. Around midnight, everyone went to bed. The fire was dying down to glowing coals, and I lay awake listening to the tent fabric ripple with the breeze. Mia was asleep beside me, her breathing steady. Outside, the forest shifted, creaks, tiny pops, branches bending. I told myself it was normal. Woods make noise. But then I heard it again. That voice. It sounded faint at first, like someone talking too far away to make out the words. But it was my name. I'm sure of it, Evan. I froze. It came again, from somewhere behind the tent. Evan. The zipper on the tent door was 6 inches from my hand. I thought about unzipping it, calling out, but my body wouldn't move. I just held my breath and waited. For maybe a full minute, there was nothing. Then I heard slow footsteps circling the tent. One crunch at a time, leaves rustling, dirt shifting. The steps stopped right behind my head. Mia stirred beside me. "What's wrong?" she whispered. I swallowed. "Someone's out there." We both froze, listening. Nothing. Just the faint hiss of the dying fire. Then, out of nowhere, laughter, not loud, not hysterical, just this weird, low chuckle that sounded exactly like Dylan. "Dylan?" I whispered, sitting up. Mia frowned. "Why would he be outside?" I reached for the flashlight and unzipped the tent halfway. The cold air rushed in, sharp and earthy. I flashed the light toward the fire pit. Dylan was there, still in his sleeping bag, snoring softly. The laughter stopped. Somewhere past the tree line, something moved. Branches cracked, then silence. Mia whispered, "Close it, please." I zipped the tent all the way and kept the flashlight pointed at the flap, waiting for it to move. It didn't. Morning felt like a lie. Sunlight, birds, coffee. All the normal things that should have made me feel better. Harper was the first to speak. "Did anyone else hear it last night?" "What?" Dylan said, pouring water into the camping kettle. "The laugh," she said quietly. "Right before midnight." I looked up at her. "You heard it too?" She nodded. "It sounded like you, Evan. Like you were standing right outside my tent." My stomach dropped. "I heard you." Mia went pale. "No, we all heard someone." "That's not a coincidence." Dylan tried to joke, but his voice cracked. "Maybe there's another group camping close by." Harper shook her head. I checked the map. The next nearest site is 1.5 miles down the road. We looked at each other, trying to laugh it off again, but no one could. That's when I noticed the footprints. Behind our tents, there was a long trail of shoe prints circling through the dirt. Some small, some large, looping around and doubling back like someone had been pacing all night. Dylan crouched to look closer. "Could be ours." "No," I said. "Look at the spacing. These aren't random. It's like whoever it was walked around each tent one by one." Harper backed up a step. "That's not funny." No one had said it was. That day the silence returned. The birds that had been chirping in the morning disappeared by noon. Even the wind seemed to stop. By evening it felt like the forest was listening. Every time we talked there was this echo. Delayed, faint, but definitely there. It mimicked our voices from somewhere in the trees. "Did you hear that?" Mia asked after laughing at one of Dylan's dumb jokes. We all went still. Her laugh had echoed back, not perfectly. Just off. A second too late. Like someone out there was trying to copy it but didn't quite know how. The fire cracked. No one spoke again for a long time. That night, I stayed up late just staring at the fire and trying to listen. No footsteps. No whispers. Just the sound of the flames. But when I finally turned to crawl into the tent, I froze. Across the clearing, barely visible in the dark, a figure stood at the edge of the trees, tall, still, watching. It didn't move when my flashlight hit it. It didn't run. It just stood there. And then, in a perfect imitation of my voice, it said, "Good night, Mia." And then it smiled. The smile didn't move. It just hovered in the dark like a trick of the firelight until my flashlight flickered and died. I yanked the zipper shut and sat there shaking. Mia whispered, "What was it?" "I don't know," I said, though my voice sounded like someone else's. We didn't sleep. Every few minutes something brushed the tent, slow drags of fingers over nylon, soft enough to question if it happened at all. Around 3 a.m. the sound stopped, leaving only our own breathing and the ringing silence pressing against our ears. At sunrise the figure was gone, but its prints weren't. They led out from the tree line, circled the fire pit, and stopped exactly where I'd been standing, bare feet, toes sunk deep into damp dirt. Harper refused to stay another night. She was already packing. Dylan laughed it off, but his hands were shaking when he tried to light the stove. We argued, leave now or wait until evening when Dylan could drive. The road back down the mountain was narrow and rough. Daylight felt safer. By noon the wind picked up. The forest finally had a sound again. Branches creaking, leaves hissing. But underneath that faintly came something else. A low chant. Not words, just rhythm. It moved through the woods like water, here 1 second, gone the next. Harper kept glancing around. "Do you hear that?" Mia did. Dylan pretended not to. When I walked 10 steps into the trees, the sound stopped. Then from behind me I heard my own voice say, "Harper," exactly how I just said it. Tone, pitch, breath. I turned, expecting the group, nothing but pines. I started recording on my phone. The microphone caught the wind, a faint hiss, and then that same echo repeating my question again, softer, like it was getting tired of pretending. That evening, the quiet returned. The world dimmed early, clouds closing in. Dylan got the fire going. Harper kept her flashlight tight in her hand. None of us spoke until Mia asked, "What if it's just sound carrying weird? Like acoustics?" Harper snapped, "Since when do acoustics laugh?" Dylan threw a stick into the fire. Sparks jumped and popped. "Fine, we'll leave first thing, happy?" But deep down we all knew. The woods weren't going to wait. The first scream came at dusk. Short, sharp, human. It came from the direction of the lake Harper mentioned on night 1. She bolted up. "Someone's hurt." Before we could stop her, she was already running. I grabbed a flashlight and chased after her. The beam carved narrow tunnels of light through fog that hadn't been there minutes ago. The air smelled metallic, like rain that never fell. "Harper," I shouted. My voice bounced back, wrong again. Higher pitched, delayed. She answered once, then silence. When I reached the lake clearing, everything looked washed out, like moonlight had drained the color. Ripples moved across the surface, though there was no wind. On the far bank stood Harper, facing the water. "Hey," I called. "We're leaving. Come back." She didn't move. Then she turned her head halfway, just enough for me to see her mouth. It was open too wide, like she was stretching a smile that didn't belong to her. The sound that came out wasn't her voice. It was mine. "We're leaving. Come back." I stumbled backward, dropped the flashlight. By the time I picked it up, she was gone. Back at camp, Dylan was yelling at Mia. "Why would you let her go alone?" "She ran before I—" Mia stopped when she saw me. "Where's Harper?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. We waited an hour, calling her name until our voices broke. Each time we shouted, something deeper in the woods repeated it back. Eventually, Dylan said we'd find her in the morning and crawled into his tent. I stayed by the fire, staring at the darkness where the voice had come from. The woods hummed, low, constant, like the sound power lines make. I tried recording again. Nothing on playback but static. At some point, I must have dozed off because I woke to footsteps circling the fire. I thought it was Dylan checking the tents until I saw him sitting across from me, eyes wide. "It's behind you," he whispered. I turned too fast, flashlight shaking. There was no one there, but the air was colder, thick with that metallic smell again. Then a whisper right by my ear. "Don't turn around," I did anyway. Nothing, just our tents swaying in the windless dark. At dawn, Harper's tent was empty. The zipper was still closed from the outside. We packed in silence. Mia kept looking back toward the lake. Dylan muttered prayers under his breath. When we finally got in the car, the forest noise changed again, like the trees were moving closer. As we rolled down the dirt path, I looked in the mirror and saw figures between the trunks, tall shadows standing in clusters, perfectly still, all facing the road. Halfway to the main highway, Dylan's tire blew. We pulled over. The spare was flat too, no signal. He swore and kicked the car. The sound echoed, once, twice, then again and again, fading into laughter that wasn't ours. We decided to walk the rest of the way. The trail back crossed a small bridge over a dry creek. Boards creaked under our weight. Mia was ahead of me when she froze. "Listen." Far off through the trees came humming, soft, childish, looping the same few notes. It got louder, closer. My stomach twisted. It was Harper's voice humming the same tune she'd been singing when we pitched the tents. "Harper?" Mia shouted before I could stop her. Instant silence. Then right next to her ear, the same voice whispered, "Found you." She screamed and bolted. I ran after her, yelling her name, tripping over roots. Dylan's flashlight flicked somewhere behind us. When I reached her, she was on her knees, sobbing. It was her, she kept saying. It was her face, but wrong. I helped her up. Dylan appeared out of the dark, pale and shaking. "We need to keep moving." We did, but the forest changed around us, trails twisting back toward where we'd come. No matter which direction we turned, the same fallen tree blocked our path. Each time we passed it, the carvings on the bark multiplied. Our initials, scratched fresh bleeding sap. By sunset, we realized we'd walked in a circle. Our campsite sat ahead of us again, fire still smoldering even though we hadn't lit it since morning. That night, there was no choice but to stay. Dylan sat with his back to the car, clutching a hatchet. Mia and I stayed in one tent, light off, every muscle tense. Sometime after midnight, rain started, light, steady. The sound should have been comforting, but mixed with it came whispers, layered, hundreds of them. They said nothing clear, just fragments, our names, bits of laughter, echoes of every word we'd spoken since arriving. Then from outside, Harper's voice. "It's okay now. You can come out," Mia gasped. "Evan, she's alive!" Before I could stop her, she unzipped the tent. Cold air rushed in, heavy with the smell of wet soil. Outside stood Harper, soaked, hair plastered to her face, smiling too wide. "See?" she said softly. "It's fine." Her eyes were black, no reflection, and when she moved her head, her neck made a faint cracking sound. She reached a hand toward Mia. "You just have to listen." I pulled Mia back and zipped the tent. Harper's voice changed, low, broken. "Don't you want to hear it?" She began tapping the side of the tent with her fingers, slow, rhythmic. Tap, 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 tap. After a while, other taps joined in from different directions, circling us until the whole campsite sounded alive. Dylan yelled something, then a thud. Maybe he fell, maybe worse. I didn't check. The tapping stopped all at once. Then silence. Then a whisper right behind my ear from inside the tent. "It's your turn." I grabbed Mia's hand and crawled out the back flap into the rain. The campsite was empty. No Dylan, no Harper. Just footprints leading toward the lake, already filling with water. We ran until the forest thinned and headlights flashed through the trees. Some camper's RV heading down the main road. We waved them down, crying, half coherent. They let us in. When I looked back, our campsite fire was burning again, bright orange through the downpour. We told the rangers everything. The noises, the voices. Harper missing. They searched for 2 days. Found her shoes near the lake, nothing else. Dylan's hatchet was by the water's edge, blade buried in the mud. They ruled it an accident. "People get turned around," the ranger said. "Sound does weird things in the mountains." I wanted to believe him. But on the drive home, as the forest disappeared behind us, my phone, which had been dead since the night before, buzzed once. A new voice memo had appeared, time-stamped 3 a.m. I hit play, static, wind, and then my voice whispering, "It's your turn." It's been 6 months since that night. I still wake up to the sound of rain even when it's dry outside. It's always the same rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. Like the woods are knocking to remind me they remember. Mia doesn't talk about it. She transferred schools, deleted every photo from that trip. When I call, her answers are short, polite, hollow. Once, halfway through a sentence, she froze mid-word and whispered, "Do you hear that?" Then the line went dead. I haven't tried again. I kept the voice memo. I shouldn't have, but deleting it felt like lying to myself. I've played it dozens of times. Every playback sounds a little different. Background noises shifting, whispers layered under mine. Lately there's a new one, a laugh. Dylan's laugh. 3 weeks ago, a park ranger called me. They'd reopened the Mount Hood sites for summer. Site 9, he said, was cleared, newly mapped. He thought I'd want to know since my incident report was on file. His voice cracked near the end of the call, like he wanted to tell me something else but couldn't. That night I dreamed about the fire pit. Only this time I was watching myself from the trees. My body sat by the flames, staring straight ahead, lips moving. I woke up whispering, "I'll come back." I don't know why. Last weekend I actually did. I told myself it was closure, that if I saw the place in daylight it would break whatever hold it had. The road was smoother now, fresh gravel, but the forest looked thinner, as if it had leaned back from the campsite, giving it space. The fire ring was still there. The dirt inside was clean, no ashes, yet when I crouched down I could smell smoke, faint and sweet like the night we arrived. Beside the pit, half buried, was my old flashlight. The batteries were corroded, the lens cracked, but when I pressed the switch it flickered once and died. Something moved at the edge of the clearing, a figure maybe 20 feet away, standing between 2 pines. I called out before I could stop myself. "Hello?" It didn't move. So I said stupidly, "It's okay. I just came to..." The rest of the sentence echoed back, perfectly timed, exactly my voice. I backed toward the car. The air grew thick, muffled, like sound itself had weight. From the trees came more voices. My laugh, Mia's sob, Harper humming that broken tune. They overlapped, rising and falling until I couldn't tell which was mine anymore. Then everything stopped. The silence after was worse than the noise. It pressed on my skull, filled my throat. I tried to breathe, but every inhale felt borrowed. I remember turning to run, and that's when I saw the campsite from above, as if I'd stepped outside my own body for a second. 4 tents, 4 shadows, all of us still there. I woke in my car parked on the highway shoulder, engine off, dawn light seeping through the windshield. My phone sat on the passenger seat recording. The file was an hour-long static rain, and at the end my voice whispering, "You came back." I moved 2 states away after that. Different job, city noise, people everywhere. But the woods follow me in small ways. A tree-lined reflection in an office window. Footsteps behind me that stop when I do. Last night, walking home, I passed a park. Kids were camping out in the open field for some scout thing. I heard laughter, and for half a second it echoed wrong. Flat, delayed, like it had traveled too far to get there. I stopped. The echo stopped too. Then from the dark just beyond the tree line, someone whispered my name the way the forest used to. Not loud, not angry, almost gentle. Evan. I didn't look. I just kept walking, fast, trying to breathe, pretending the silence that followed wasn't watching me. But when I got home and locked the door, the apartment air smelled like pine smoke, and from the hallway vent came the faint, rhythmic tapping I'll never forget. Tap, 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 tap. The woods don't let go. They just wait for you to listen again. The place looked normal from the road, just another lakeside rental with peeling white paint and a deck that slanted toward the water. But the air around it felt wrong. Too still, like the woods were holding their breath. Mia was the one who found the listing. Quiet, secluded, perfect for couples. We'd both been drowning in city noise, so 2 nights offline sounded like therapy. $300 total, good reviews, 5 stars from a dozen guests, each one writing the same thing. Felt like home. It didn't feel like home when we pulled up. It felt like someone was already inside. The curtains were drawn, and when I cut the engine, I swear I saw the edge of one lift, like a hand had just let go. Did you see that? I asked. Mia squinted at the window. What? Never mind. I forced a laugh, popped the trunk, started unloading. The heat hit me like a wall. Pine, lake water, and something faintly metallic, like pennies left in a puddle too long. There was no cell signal, just the endless buzz of insects and the creak of the dock shifting against the current. The key was in a little lockbox on the porch. Code already messaged through the Airbnb app. 1289. Inside, the cabin smelled like lemon cleaner and dust. Everything looked staged. Couch angled perfectly. Throw blanket folded once and draped just so. A bowl of fake fruit on the table. But what got me was the framed photograph on the wall. A man and a woman standing right where we were. Same couch, same lamp, even the same rug. Their smiles looked forced. The caption under the frame read, "First guests 2019. Creepy, Mia muttered, setting her bag down. Why would you frame strangers? I didn't answer. My eyes caught a piece of paper on the counter. A handwritten note on hotel stationery paper. Welcome, Evan and Mia. The lake's quiet this time of year. You'll have plenty of privacy. If you need anything, just text me. I live nearby. Tom, okay, that's friendly, Mia said. He must check the booking details. I nodded, but my stomach turned. Nowhere in the listing had I used my full name. That night after dinner, we sat on the deck watching the water blacken under the stars. It should have been beautiful. Instead, I kept glancing at the tree line. Every few minutes, I thought I saw movement, thin shapes sliding between the pines, gone when I looked straight at them. Mia tried her phone again. Still no service. You? I shook my head. Offline weekend, remember? She grinned. Yeah, romantic, right? Somewhere down the lake, a single porch light blinked on, then off again. I told myself it was another cabin, someone turning in early. But the sound that followed, a door creaking open, then slamming shut, came from much closer. Probably the wind, Mia said before I could speak. There was no wind. We turned in around midnight. The bed creaked when we lay down, old wood complaining. I was half asleep when a faint ding came from Mia's nightstand. You get a signal? I mumbled. Maybe Wi-Fi kicked in. She picked up her phone, frowned. That's weird. What? It's a message from Tom, but it's not through Airbnb. She turned the screen toward me. Unknown number, local area code. Dom, hope you're settling in. You look tired from the drive. I stared at it. Maybe he meant that generically. She scrolled. No, He sent it at 12:04 a.m. We hadn't seen anyone since arriving. I got up, checked the blinds. Nothing but the dark yard and the reflection of my own face in the glass. Text him back. Mia said, "Say thanks?" I did. Me, all good, thanks. Place is great. Almost instantly. Tom, good. The photos don't do it justice. You two look happy together. My throat tightened. There were no photos of us on our profile, just a landscape shot of the mountains. Locked the door. At 2 a.m. I woke to footsteps. Overhead, slow, heavy, the cabin only had one floor. I nudged Mia. "You hear that?" She mumbled something half awake. Then the sound came again. Boards creaking in a deliberate rhythm, moving from one end of the ceiling to the other. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag, slipped out of bed. The air was colder than before, carrying that same metallic smell. When I reached the hallway, the noise stopped. The only sound was the hum of the fridge. I checked the attic hatch, closed, latched. A padlock hanging loose through the eyelet but not locked. When I turned back toward the bedroom, the flashlight beam caught something on the wall that hadn't been there earlier. A new note taped beside the photo frame. "Don't worry. The boards just settle when I walk." The handwriting matched Tom's. I woke Mia. We packed in minutes, but when I tried the front door, the deadbolt spun freely. Wouldn't catch, wouldn't unlock. Windows were painted shut. Even the porch slider was jammed like it hadn't moved in years. "Call for help," I said. No signal. I tried the Airbnb app offline mode. It opened, but every review, every photo had changed. The same image repeated down the screen. The man from the framed photo smiling wider now, teeth too white. Underneath each fake review, felt like home. We spent the rest of the night sitting on the couch, lights on, waiting for sunrise. Around 4, the front door clicked, not a knock. Just the sound of the latch turning once, then again. Then a voice muffled through the wood. "Everything okay in there?" Mia's hand crushed mine. "Tom?" I didn't answer. The voice came again, calm, almost friendly. "Sometimes the lock sticks. Want me to come fix it?" I forced words out. "We're fine." A pause. Then, "Good. I wouldn't want you to feel trapped." His footsteps moved away, but the porch boards didn't creak. When dawn finally came, the door opened easily. Outside, fresh footprints led from the porch to the tree line. Bare feet dark with mud. We ran to the car. I jammed the key, turned the ignition, nothing. Battery dead. On the passenger seat sat another note folded neatly. "Checkout isn't until Monday. You still have one more night." Mia started crying. I reached for her hand, but the steering wheel vibrated slightly under my palm like something inside the car was moving, breathing. Then my phone lit up again. Full bars for the first time all trip. A new message. "Unknown number, smile for the camera." I looked up. The picture window of the cabin reflected our car perfectly, and in the reflection behind our seats, a man was standing. The reflection froze me. There shouldn't have been anyone in the car. I spun around, half expecting a stranger in the back seat, but the space was empty. Only our bags and the faint scent of lemon cleaner, same as inside the cabin. Mia whispered, "Did you see him too?"
"Yeah, we got out fast."
The air outside felt thicker, humming like power lines. The cabin door stood open, though I was sure I'd closed it. Inside, the lights flickered once and died. Somewhere near the kitchen, a phone buzzed. Long, steady vibration that wouldn't stop. It wasn't ours. We edged toward the sound. On the counter lay an older model smartphone, screen cracked, wallpaper frozen on a photo of the lake. A notification pulsed. One new message, Tom. I tapped it. "If you leave early, make sure to clean up after yourselves." The timestamp read 1 minute ago. No Wi-Fi symbol, no service bars. Mia grabbed my arm. "We're leaving." "I don't care if we have to walk," I didn't argue. We shoved our stuff into backpacks and stepped off the porch toward the road. Halfway down the drive, the woods went silent. No birds, no wind, just the crunch of gravel under our shoes. Then a ringtone floated from behind us. The same old-school chime as the phone in the kitchen. We kept walking. The sound followed. A mile later, we reached the turnoff where we'd come in, but the sign was gone. The dirt track split 3 ways, none matching the GPS map. My phone said searching for network, even though it still showed full bars. Mia started crying quietly. "We passed that stump already. We're looping." I wanted to deny it, but the truth sat heavy in my gut. The forest looked the same in every direction. Another text buzzed through. Tom, turn around. You missed the trail. I dropped the phone like it burned. He's tracking us. How? There's no service. The woods answered with a soft click like a camera shutter. We ran until our legs screamed. When we finally stopped, the cabin stood ahead of us again. Curtains open now. On the deck railing, 2 mugs of coffee steamed as if waiting. Mia whispered, "He wants us inside." I shook my head. "He wants something, yeah." The door was half closed. From inside came faint music, old scratchy jazz that shouldn't have been playing because we'd never turned on a radio. We circled to the back, found a cellar door half buried in leaves. Rusted latch, fresh fingerprints. I lifted it and felt cold air spill out, smelling of damp wood and mold. Mia hesitated. "Evan, if he's watching, the only place he won't expect us is where he hides." The steps groaned under us. The cellar light blinked to life. Motion sensor. Rows of shelves lined the walls, jars filled with cloudy liquid. I aimed the flashlight at the far corner and my stomach flipped. Photo equipment. Tripods, lenses, and a wall of monitors showing every room upstairs. One screen displayed the deck, us right now standing in the basement. Mia gasped. "That's impossible," I followed her gaze. On the monitor, a man stood behind us. We turned. Nothing there. But on the screen, he leaned closer, face pale, eyes wide like he was smelling us through the glass. The feed glitched, static crawling across his grin. Then the monitors went black. Footsteps above. Slow, deliberate. Mia whispered, "He's upstairs." The basement had one narrow window near the ceiling. I shoved a crate under it and boosted her up. "Go! Run to the road, find anyone!" She didn't want to leave, but fear overruled everything. She slipped through, vanished into daylight. The footsteps stopped. Silence. I waited, counting heartbeats. The air shifted, someone standing at the top of the stairs. I caught the faint scrape of nails against the wall, slow, deliberate. "Tom," I said, voice shaking. A man's tone drifted down, calm and conversational. "You shouldn't wander. It's unsafe down there." I gripped the flashlight like a weapon. "What do you want?" He chuckled softly. "You came here. You invited me when you booked. That means you're my guest." The door creaked open wider. A silhouette filled the frame. Tall, shoulders wrong like his joints bent the wrong direction. For a second, his face caught the light. I recognized him, the man from the photograph. I threw the flashlight. The beam spun, hit his chest, bounced off. I bolted through the cellar, searching for another exit. Found a narrow tunnel at the back. Dirt walls, dripping condensation. I crawled until the passage opened under the deck. The yard was empty. The car still sat dead, but a trail of footprints led into the trees, 2 sets this time. Mia's smaller prints beside his. "Mia." No answer. A new text buzzed from the phone in my pocket. I hadn't realized I'd grabbed it off the counter in the panic. "Tom, she's beautiful. Don't worry, I'll keep her company while you finish packing." I ran. The forest closed in, light thinning to gray. Branches snagged my shirt, roots tripped my feet. Then I saw the glint of metal ahead, an old camper half swallowed by moss. The door hung open. Inside, Mia sat on the floor, shaking. "He's gone," she whispered. "He just walked into the trees." I pulled her up, held her. "We're leaving, now." We stumbled back toward the lake. The path felt different, tilted, like gravity had shifted sideways. Every few yards, another camera lens peeked from tree trunks, blinking red. At the shoreline, our car lights flashed once. High beams aimed straight at us, though no one sat inside. Then the horn blared, long and steady, until smoke curled from under the hood. I dragged Mia behind a rock. "He's playing with us." A voice carried across the water, distorted through unseen speakers. "You wanted privacy? Isn't this perfect?" The sound bounced from every direction, impossible to pinpoint. We hid until sunset. The lake turned black again, reflecting only the cabin windows, now lit, glowing soft yellow. Through one pane I saw movement, a figure pacing. For a moment I thought it was him, but then I realized it was me. My own reflection walking inside, carrying a cup of coffee, smiling toward someone unseen. Mia whispered, "We never left." I pulled her back into the trees. "We're real. Keep moving." But the deeper we went, the more the forest repeated itself. Same fallen log, same broken signpost. Each time new notes appeared nailed to trunks. "Stay for breakfast. The lake's better at night. You look happier now." The handwriting was mine. When darkness swallowed the path, we found another light ahead. Small, orange, steady. A campfire. Beside it sat a man, face shadowed by the flames. "Tom?" I called. He lifted his head slowly. "You shouldn't call me that." The fire hissed. In its light, his features shifted, blurring, rearranging until he looked exactly like me. Same eyes, same stubble, even the rip in my sleeve. Mia whimpered. He smiled my smile. "There's only room for one host." Before I could move, the fire flared white. Heat slammed into us. I pulled Mia away, stumbled, hit the ground. When my vision cleared, the clearing was empty. No fire, no man, only ashes forming the shape of a key. We ran until the cabin appeared again, inevitable as gravity. Lights blazing, door wide. On the couch sat 2 mugs of coffee, steam rising. The framed photo on the wall had changed. Not the first guests anymore. Us. Same pose, same couch, eyes wide and hollow. Mia whispered, "We have to finish this day. That's how we get out." I didn't understand, but followed her inside. The second we crossed the threshold, the door slammed. Every light in the place flickered, humming like bees. The phone on the counter lit up one last time. "Tom, thank you for checking in. Checkout is at sunrise." Mia's voice cracked. "What happens at sunrise?" I looked at our photo again. The horizon behind our smiling faces was brightening. The sun was already rising. The light coming through the curtains wasn't morning light. It was flat gray, like the world outside had been copied badly. Mia stood by the window whispering, "It's sunrise." But the clock on the wall hadn't moved since 2:13 a.m. I walked toward the photo again. Our faces were clearer now. In the background, through the cabin window, a figure stood, half hidden, one hand pressed to the glass. It wasn't Tom. It wasn't either of us. It was something blurred between. The phone on the counter buzzed once. "Tom, time to go home." I wanted to smash it, but the sound didn't stop. Every light in the cabin blinked with each vibration. Then, all at once, they died. We were blind except for the thin line of dawn bleeding through the curtains. Mia grabbed my wrist. "If we open the door, we finish the stay. That's what he wants. Maybe that's the only way out." She shook her head. "People don't check out. They get replaced." Her words made sense in a way I didn't want them to. The listings reviews, every felt like home, and they weren't reviews. They were messages, echoes. Something knocked from inside the walls, a hollow, careful rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. Then a man's voice muffled, traveling through the floorboards. "You left the place a mess." Mia backed away from the door. "He's under us." The smell hit next. Lemon cleaner and wet soil, thick enough to taste. I pulled her toward the bathroom, the only room without windows. We locked ourselves in. From the vent above came slow breathing. Not ours. Then calm and close. "You should see how good you look on camera." The mirror fogged, though the room was cold. Words appeared across the glass, traced by an unseen finger. Checkout complete swung the door open. The main room was empty, but our photo was changing again, the colors bleeding. Our eyes were gone, replaced by blank white circles. The phone vibrated one last time and began playing audio on its own. Footsteps, laughter, the sound of 2 people talking. Us from the first night. Each line repeated, warped like a recording. "Deteriorating, it's quiet out here. Feels like home. Feels like home. Feels like home." Over and over until the voice wasn't ours anymore. The front door creaked open by itself. Outside, the lake shimmered with early light, surface too still to be real. I could see figures standing along the opposite bank, shoulder to shoulder, faces blank white like the photo. Mia whispered, "They're the guests." She started toward the door, slow, hypnotized. I caught her arm, but she didn't feel solid, her skin colder than the air. "Don't," I said. She smiled faintly. "He said we just have to leave the key." She held up a small brass key I'd never seen before, engraved with a number, 9. When she stepped through the doorway, the world outside brightened too fast, light swallowing her shape until she was gone. No splash, no scream, just stillness. I ran after her, but the porch ended in open water. The entire yard was gone, replaced by the lake stretching right up to the doorway. My reflection rippled on the surface, except the version staring back smiled when I didn't. From behind me, the same calm voice. "Checkout complete." I turned. Tom, or what had been Tom, stood where the couch used to be, pale eyes reflecting the window light. "You kept the place warm," he said. "Someone always does." He held up a camera. The flash went off. White. When I woke, the cabin was clean again. No bags, no footprints, no smell of smoke. Just the faint hum of the fridge and the framed photo back on the wall. Only one person in it now, me. The caption underneath read, "Host." The phone buzzed. A new booking request. A young couple, 2 nights. Their message, "We love the pictures. Looks peaceful. Can't wait to stay." My hand moved on its own, tapping accept. Somewhere deep in the walls, boards creaked, like footsteps returning to their place. Outside, the lake was calm again, reflecting the porch perfectly. In that reflection, 2 faint shapes approached the cabin, smiling, carrying luggage, the air filled with the scent of lemon cleaner. And from the empty kitchen came a gentle voice, patient and practiced. "Welcome home." I saw her the first night the fog rolled in. County Road 16 was empty except for my headlights cutting through the mist. And then there she was, standing dead center in the lane, hair stuck to her face, barefoot, dress clinging to her like she'd just crawled out of the river. I hit the brakes so hard the seatbelt bruised my chest. The car screeched, stalled, silence slamming down like a lid. She didn't move. For a second I thought maybe she was a deer in human form, same wide, glassy stare. Then she lifted her hand, slow and careful, like she wasn't sure it was still attached to her body. "Are you okay?" I shouted through the windshield. No answer. The fog swallowed my voice. When I finally got out, the air hit me like cold water. It smelled like rain and metal, like the inside of a wet coin. "Hey," I said, softer now. "You need help?" She looked up and I wish she hadn't. Her eyes were too dark. Not black, not brown, just empty. Like if I looked long enough, I'd fall straight through them. Then she smiled, small and uneven. "My car broke down." Her voice was barely a whisper, like she hadn't spoken in days. I nodded, trying to sound calm. "Okay, yeah, I can give you a ride. There's a gas station about 10 miles back." She didn't hesitate. Just walked to the passenger door and opened it before I even unlocked it. The sound of the door creaking made my skin crawl. Dry, metallic, like something old being forced open. She sat down. Water dripped from her hair onto the seat. "Thanks," she said. "It's cold tonight." I turned the heater up. "Yeah, you're lucky I came by. Nobody drives this road after dark." She looked at me then, and I swear her expression flickered. Something behind the polite smile. Something too aware. "You're wrong," she said. "They drive. You just don't see them." We rode in silence for a few miles. The radio only hissed static. The GPS spun like it couldn't find us. "What's your name?" I asked, trying to fill the quiet. "Lila." Pretty name. Didn't fit the way she said it, like she had to remember it first. "Where exactly were you headed?" "Home." She said it like it was obvious. "Where's that?" She didn't answer. Just stared out the window at the trees rushing by, except they didn't look like trees anymore. In the fog, they looked like people standing too close together, their faces blurred. My chest tightened. I turned the radio off completely. "You from around here?" Finally, she looked back at me. "You shouldn't talk so much. It makes them notice you." "Who?" Her eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. I followed her gaze and saw nothing. Just the empty back seat. But then the car's temperature dropped like the heater died. My breath fogged the windshield from the inside. "Did you feel that?" I asked. She didn't blink. "Don't look back." I didn't realize I was gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles hurt. The road curved sharply, and for a moment I thought I saw headlights behind us, 2 pale orbs weaving through the fog. But every time I glanced again, they were gone. "Is someone following you?" "Not me." Her voice was too calm. The next few miles blurred. The fog grew thicker until the world shrank to the glow of my headlights and the faint outline of the road. Every once in a while, I'd hear a wet thump against the car roof like branches hitting. But the trees were too far off to reach us. I turned toward her again to ask something, anything, and she wasn't there. The seat was empty. Still wet, still indented where she'd sat, but empty. I slammed the brakes. My heart thudded so loud I could hear it over the idling engine. "Lila." The fog ahead shifted, forming shapes that weren't quite human. And then I saw her again, standing in the middle of the road exactly like before. Same posture, same tilt of the head. I didn't move. I couldn't. She walked toward the car, slow steps echoing like there was a hollow tunnel under the pavement. When she reached my window, she bent down and smiled. "You went the wrong way," she said softly. "You turned around." I didn't." She reached through the half-open window and pressed her cold hand against my cheek. It felt like touching river stones. "Drive," she whispered. "Please, don't stop again." And then she was gone, not vanished in a puff of smoke, just gone like the fog absorbed her. I drove. I don't know how long. The road looked the same in every direction. The odometer ticked higher, but the gas gauge never moved. I stopped trusting the dashboard. Finally, through the fog, I saw a light. A diner sign, flickering neon red. Letters burned out so it read in ER instead of diner. Relief hit me so hard my throat ached. I pulled in fast, gravel crunching under the tires. Inside, the place looked frozen in time. Chrome stools, faded booths, a jukebox that hummed faintly like it was dreaming. A waitress stood behind the counter, staring out the window. She didn't react when I came in. "Hey," I said, voice shaking. "There was a girl on the road, Lila. She said her car broke down. You seen her?" The waitress turned slowly. Her face was pale, drawn tight around the eyes. "You picked her up." "How do you... You shouldn't have stopped." I felt the floor tilt under me. "She needed help." The woman shook her head. "That's what she always says." I sat down hard on a stool. The seat was sticky like it had been wiped but never cleaned. "What do you mean, always?" The waitress poured coffee into a cracked mug. The smell hit me, burnt, bitter. They find cars on that road every year. Same story. Somebody picks up a girl, says her name's Lila. Then she disappears and the driver never makes it home. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to tell me it was a joke. She didn't. "She's been dead 40 years, the woman said. Drowned in the river after her car went off the bridge near mile marker 12. I almost laughed then because it was too much, too perfect, like a campfire story. But the fog outside pressed against the windows, thick enough that it looked alive. "You're serious," she nodded. "You can still see the wreck if the water's low. They never pulled her car out." Something cold uncurled in my stomach. "You said the driver never makes it home?" The waitress poured herself coffee too. "Yeah, sometimes we see them again though. Usually just before the fog rolls in." A loud knock hit the diner door. Both of us jumped. A figure stood outside, barely visible through the mist. "She's back," the waitress whispered. I turned slowly. Lila stood in the parking lot, dress dripping, head tilted. She smiled, same uneven curve of the mouth. The lights above us flickered. The waitress stepped back. "Don't open it." But I was already moving, like something behind my ribs was pulling me forward. When I pushed the door open, the cold hit like a punch. The fog was louder out here, humming, whispering. Lila took one step closer. "You didn't finish the drive." My throat felt raw. "Where does it end?" She pointed down the road. "Where it always does." Behind her, through the fog, headlights blinked once. The sound of an engine idling drifted closer, low and wet. The waitress shouted from inside, "Get away from her." But Lila's hand found mine, freezing, solid. "Please," she said again. "Just drive." The headlights grew brighter. I looked, expecting another car. But it wasn't a car, it was mine. Same dented fender, same cracked headlight, same license plate. And behind the wheel sat me. I stumbled back. The Lila in front of me smiled sadly. "You should have kept going." She stepped backward into the fog, disappearing inch by inch until only her face remained. "Don't stop this time." Then she was gone again. The other car, the copy, idled a moment longer. Then its lights dimmed and died. Silence crashed down. I turned toward the diner, but it was gone. The lot, the neon sign, everything. Just the endless gray of County Road 16 stretching both directions. My car parked in the middle like it had never moved. I was back where I'd started. I got in. The seat was wet again. On the passenger side, a single footprint stained the floor mat. The radio clicked on by itself. Through the static, a faint voice. "Almost home." I put the car in gear. The fog swallowed everything. The car moved like it had a mind of its own. The steering wheel felt lighter than it should, like something invisible had a hand on it too. I kept my eyes forward, afraid of what I'd see if I looked beside me again. Fog pressed against the windshield so thick it looked solid. The headlights bounced back in pale yellow bursts. Every sound was muffled. The tires on the wet pavement, the hum of the engine, my heartbeat in my throat. Almost home, the voice had said. The radio hissed again. Mile marker 12. I didn't touch the dial, didn't speak, just drove. When the sign appeared through the mist, rusted metal, bullet holes punched through the numbers, it read 12. The air grew heavier. My ears popped like I was underwater. That's when I saw the bridge. It wasn't much, just a one-lane stretch of cracked asphalt over a black, slow-moving river. Wooden rails leaned out like broken ribs. A warning sign flashed dim orange, bridge unsafe, do not cross. My hands ached from gripping the wheel. I pressed the brakes, but the pedal went soft, sinking to the floor with no resistance. The car didn't slow down. The headlights caught something on the far side of the bridge, a woman standing just beyond the barrier. Dress soaked. Bare feet, Lila, I whispered. The car picked up speed. Stop, I muttered. Please stop. It didn't. The tires hit the first plank, the wood groaning under the weight. Water rushed loud below like it was waiting. Lila lifted her arm, pointing toward me. Or maybe past me. Her mouth moved, shaping words I couldn't hear. Then the passenger door unlocked itself with a sharp click. I turned just in time to see her sitting there again. Soaked, trembling, eyes fixed straight ahead. I told you not to stop, she said softly. I didn't. You turned around. You have to finish now. The car rattled across the bridge. I could feel every board shifting, every nail screaming under the tires. Halfway across, the headlights flickered and died, leaving us blind. Lila turned toward me. Her skin was gray now, veins faintly blue under the surface. It's not far. Where are we going? Home. I felt the first crack under the tires. The wood gave with a deep groan, then snapped. The front end dipped suddenly. The seatbelt dug into my shoulder. I slammed the gear shift into reverse. The engine roared but didn't move. Lila whispered, "Don't fight it." It's always the same. The bridge tilted. Water surged below, black and cold. Then the headlights came back on for a split second, just enough for me to see what waited beneath the surface. Another car. Upside down. Headlights dimly glowing like eyes, the same make, same color. My car. I couldn't breathe. Lila reached over and touched the dashboard. The radio sparked. A child's voice came through, distant, echoing. We're almost home. The bridge gave way. The car dropped. I braced for the crash, but it never came. Everything went quiet, weightless. When I opened my eyes, the car was still, perfectly level. Outside, the world glowed blue-gray, like the air itself was liquid. We weren't underwater, not exactly. We were floating in something between fog and memory. Lila's head was tilted, eyes closed, lips moving silently. I whispered, "Where are we?" Her eyes opened, glassy now, the pupils gone. "You're where I was. You're the last one who stopped." The world outside shifted. Shapes formed, other cars half buried in the fog. Faces pressed to windows. Pale hands, people staring out with empty eyes. Each one of them looked familiar in a way I couldn't place. Lila pointed. They all tried to help. I turned back to her. "How do I get out?" She smiled sadly. "You don't, but you can give someone else a ride." I screamed at her, slammed my fists against the dashboard, but my voice went nowhere, muffled like shouting underwater. The car began to move on its own again, rolling backward up through the mist. When the windshield cleared, we were back on the bridge. Perfectly fine. The sky was lighter now, dawn pushing through the fog. The car idled, silent. The seat beside me was empty again, though the floor mat was still wet. I climbed out, shaking. The boards under my feet creaked but held. The river below looked calm, normal, like nothing had happened. Across the bridge, the fog thinned just enough for me to see another car approaching. Headlights bright, engine humming. I tried to wave it down, warn them, shout anything, but no sound came out. My throat burned, voice gone. The car slowed as it neared the bridge. I saw the driver. Young woman, window rolled halfway down, looking confused at the fog, and in her backseat movement. A figure, a girl, Lila. She turned her head and met my eyes through the glass. Then she smiled. The car drove onto the bridge. I stumbled backward, tripping over the rail. My phone buzzed in my pocket for the first time all night. The screen flickered alive, no signal. Just one new message. Unknown. "Thank you for the ride." Then another. "You can rest now." The car reached the middle of the bridge. I watched as the boards gave way, just like before. A splash echoed through the fog, soft, almost peaceful. The water swallowed everything, and then silence. I don't remember getting back to the road. 1 minute I was on the bridge. The next I was standing on the shoulder near my car. The fog had lifted completely. Morning light spread over the hills, ordinary and warm. A truck passed, honking once. The driver leaned out. "Hey! You all right, man?" I nodded weakly. Yeah, I'm fine," he pointed behind me. "You better move your car. Sheriff will tow anything left here overnight." I turned. My car was parked perfectly straight, engine running, as if it had never gone anywhere. Inside, the passenger seat was dry. For a few seconds, I almost convinced myself it was all some nightmare. The fog, the bridge, the girl. It couldn't be real. Then I noticed something wedged in the air vent. A small silver locket, half-rusted shut. I pried it open with my thumb. Inside was a photo. Lila, smiling, sitting on the hood of her car. The background was the same bridge. Underneath the picture, etched in tiny letters, "Home is where the road ends." The radio clicked on by itself. Static first, then a voice clear as glass. "County Road 16 eastbound closed due to bridge collapse. Authorities report no survivors." My stomach dropped. That wasn't possible. The bridge was still there, I'd just walked across it. But when I looked up, the horizon shimmered. The bridge was gone. Only the river remained, calm and endless. I should have left. Should have driven until the road ended or my tank ran dry. But I didn't. I just sat there staring at the water, waiting for something I couldn't name. That's when the fog started to roll back in. Thin at first, then thicker, creeping along the ground like it knew where to find me. My phone buzzed once more, unknown, almost home. The message icon pulsed until the whole screen glowed white. The engine idled, softly, and from the back seat came the sound of wet footsteps, bare feet shifting. Against the floor mats, a voice whispered, right behind my ear, "Don't stop this time." The voice was right next to me, soft, wet, too close. I turned slowly, not wanting to see but needing to. The back seat was empty, but water pooled on the leather, dripping steadily from nowhere, soaking into the carpet. My pulse hammered. I stared at the fog pressing against the windows, thick enough to look solid, like I could lean on it. The engine still idled, steady and low. Something about that hum, it didn't sound mechanical anymore. It sounded alive. The air inside the car grew colder, frosting the edges of the glass. My breath came out white. Then the radio clicked on, just a whisper of static and a familiar voice. Almost there. It was Lila. I gripped the wheel until my hands hurt. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. Silence, then, "Just take me home." "Where is home?" I shouted, but the voice faded under the static, leaving only the hiss of emptiness. I put the car in gear. The fog parted like a curtain. County Road 16 stretched ahead, infinite and featureless. I didn't think, I just drove. For a while it felt like the world had forgotten itself. The road didn't curve. The sky never brightened or darkened. I couldn't even hear the tires anymore. It was just me, the hum and that wet heartbeat rhythm echoing from somewhere deep in the car. Then I saw her in the headlights again, Lila, standing in the middle of the road, same as before. Only this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood dozens of figures, men, women, even children, pale, dripping, eyes hollow and black. All of them turned toward me as the car slowed to a stop. Lila stepped forward, her bare feet leaving no prints on the wet asphalt. "You found them," she said softly. "Who are they?" "The ones who stopped." She walked to the passenger side and opened the door. The interior light flickered, painting her face in pale flashes. "You can rest now," she whispered. "I don't understand," I said. She smiled, almost kind. "You will." Before I could move, she reached out and touched my hand. The cold sank deep, spreading up my arm like ink in water. I couldn't pull away. My reflection in the rear view shimmered, and for a heartbeat it wasn't me. It was her, smiling faintly through my own eyes. Then everything went dark. When I woke, I was standing on the side of the road. My car was gone. The fog, too. Just sunlight, soft and golden, spilling over the trees. I could hear birds. Wind. Normal sounds. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard the faint splash of water somewhere behind me. I turned and saw the bridge, or what was left of it. Half collapsed, wood dark with rot, railing twisted. The air smelled of river mud and metal. Down below, the current rippled faintly around a shape just under the surface. A car, mine, and in the driver's seat, someone, still. Head resting against the window. Me. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees, staring until the reflection broke apart in the rippling water. The wind shifted, carrying a voice so faint I almost missed it. Thank you for the ride. When I looked up again, a new figure stood on the opposite bank. A woman in a pale dress, hair clinging to her shoulders, waving faintly. Lila. She smiled one last time, then stepped backward into the mist until she was gone. The water stilled. Days later, maybe weeks, I can't tell anymore, the bridge reopened. The news said the collapse was repaired, the road safe again. They found a car downstream. The driver's body was never recovered. Sometimes on clear nights I still find myself back there. Not in dreams exactly, just there, standing by the river watching the headlights glide through fog that shouldn't exist anymore. Every so often one car slows. A driver leans out, squinting through the mist. And I hear my own voice saying, soft and tired, "Hey, you need a ride?" The door opens. The seat creaks. Water drips onto the floor mat, and somewhere deep in the fog the road begins again. The air inside the church felt like soup, thick, hot, unmoving, the kind of heat that makes your skin stick to your clothes, that presses behind your eyes until everything feels heavy. The fans on either side of the pews were spinning so slow they might as well have been still. They only pushed around the smell and sweat, flowers, and something underneath it all that no one wanted to mention, rot. It was the third day of the heat wave, and we were burying my Uncle Raymond in 99 degrees of sun-baked misery. No breeze. No clouds, no sound but the droning hum of flies. I remember thinking, he should have waited to die until after the storm. I sat in the front row with my mother, who kept dabbing her face with a folded handkerchief already soaked through. She wasn't crying, she was angry. "The AC's been out since yesterday," she muttered under her breath. Can't believe they're doing this now. My cousin Travis sat on the other side of the aisle, sunglasses on indoors, jaw twitching like he was grinding his teeth. He hadn't said a word since we walked in. None of us had. The whole room felt muted, like sound didn't want to travel through the heat. The casket sat up front, closed, thank God, surrounded by white lilies that were starting to brown at the edges. Someone had lit 2 candles near the podium, but the wax melted faster than the flames could keep up, dripping into ugly, uneven puddles. Reverend Paul's voice trembled as he read the verses. Sweat glistened on his neck, rolling down and soaking into his collar. Halfway through, he had to stop and wipe his glasses. That's when the first fly landed on the coffin. No one moved at first. It was small, black, ordinary. But then another landed beside it. And another. Within seconds, there were dozens, crawling along the polished wood, slipping under the edges where the lid met the frame. A whisper moved through the pews. Someone coughed. Someone else stood up like they might leave, then sat back down. The Reverend kept reading, pretending not to notice, but his voice faltered again. I watched the flies with my stomach twisting. I could hear the faint clicking of their wings. The church was too quiet, the air too still, and beneath it, I swear I heard a sound. A soft creak, like wood shifting, from the coffin. Everyone said the same thing later. It was just the heat. Wood expands, contracts, moves. That's what it was. But I don't care how hot it was, it sounded too human. Too deliberate, like something trying to move. The Reverend closed his Bible and gestured for the pallbearers. My mother grabbed my hand. Her skin was cold despite the heat. "Come on," she whispered. "Let's get this over with." The air outside hit me like opening an oven door. The asphalt shimmered. Even the birds were quiet. They carried Uncle Raymond's coffin to the graveyard out back, but the whole time the flies followed. Clouds of them, crawling across the casket, landing on the men's shoulders, their faces. I heard one of them gag under his breath. I tried not to breathe too deep. The smell was thicker now, sweet and sour and wrong. The ground around the open grave looked dry and cracked, like it hadn't rained in years. Reverend Paul said his final words. His voice wavered again, then broke completely when one of the ropes snapped and the casket dropped unevenly into the hole. Gasps. A thud. Dust. My mother squeezed my arm so hard I felt her nails dig in. "Let's go," she hissed. "Now." But I stayed a second longer because I could hear it again. That sound. A creak, long and low, like something shifting inside the box. Then a muffled thump. The men froze. One of them glanced at the others. "You hear that?" "Shut up," someone else muttered. "It's just settling." The Reverend looked at me then, his face pale behind the sweat. "Go wait by your mama," he said quietly. But I didn't move. I couldn't because now the sound wasn't muffled anymore, it was louder. Rhythmic. Thump, 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 coming from the coffin. Someone screamed. A woman fainted. The pallbearers dropped their ropes and backed away. I took one step forward before I even knew what I was doing. The Reverend grabbed me. "Don't," he said sharply. "Don't go near it," but I already had. The smell hit first. Thick, sweet decay bursting through the heat like a wall. Then I saw it. The lid had shifted just slightly. A gap no wider than my thumb. The sound stopped. Everything went still again. The Reverend began praying, loud now, voice shaking. The others joined in, trembling words of faith that didn't sound like they believed them. I stood there, dizzy, staring at that sliver of darkness under the coffin lid. Then I saw something move inside. Just once. Like fingers brushing against the wood. They buried him anyway. Through the dirt fast. Like the faster they worked, the less they'd have to think about what they'd heard. My mother dragged me away by the arm. "Don't look back," she kept saying. "Don't you dare look back." I didn't. Not until we were halfway down the road. When I turned, the graveyard shimmered in the heat. A dozen figures stood among the graves, still, dark, watching, and from that distance I swear I could still hear the flies. That night, the temperature didn't drop. Not even after sunset. The air was thick enough to choke on. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop hearing that sound in my head, the slow thump, thump, thump. My phone buzzed once around midnight. "A message from an unknown number. It's too hot down here." I stared at it until the screen dimmed. The AC kicked on for the first time in hours, rattling in the vents, and for a second I thought maybe I was just tired, imagining things. Then another message came through. "You didn't let me out." The next morning, Reverend Paul was gone. His car was still parked behind the church, door open, Bible on the seat. But no one saw him again after the funeral. By noon, the heat climbed past 100. The flowers at the graves started to brown, the grass curled into straw, and people swore they could smell something burning under the soil. Travis called me that night, voice shaking. "You hearing it too?" "Hearing what?" He hesitated. Then the knocking. The heat didn't break, not that night, not the next, not at all. By the third day after the funeral, the air itself felt wrong. It had a taste to it like metal and mildew. Sweat clung to my neck even at midnight. The sky looked bruised, the kind of sick gray yellow that meant the air was full of dust and smoke. Everyone in town moved slower. Conversations dried up. The grocery clerk just waved people through, too tired to talk. The ice at the gas station melted before you could reach your car, and the church, where they buried Uncle Raymond out back, stank like something had crawled into the walls and died. Travis called again that night. I almost didn't answer. He didn't even say hello, just whispered, "You still hearing it?" "What?" "The knocking." I sat on the edge of my bed, the fan squealing uselessly in the corner. "It's just in your head," I told him, even though I'd heard it too. Soft, uneven, like something tapping from far away. "It's coming from the grave," he said. I rubbed my forehead. "Travis, don't start. I went back last night." His voice cracked. "It's not right." The dirt's sinking. "Stop. It's moving." "Jesus, Travis." He didn't answer for a long moment. Then quietly, "You didn't see his hands, did you?" "What are you talking about?" "When the lid moved." "You didn't see his hands. The line went dead. I didn't sleep. I just lay there listening to the fan, the hum of insects outside, and something else beneath it all, soft, distant, rhythmic, thump, thump, thump. Every few minutes, it came again. By 2 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I threw on a shirt, grabbed my keys, and drove back toward the church. The air was thick as smoke. Cicadas screamed in the trees. The graveyard fence loomed ahead, warped by heat. When I stepped out of the car, the world went still. No wind, no sound, not even the bugs. Just that faint tapping again, echoing from somewhere deep in the ground. I followed it. The grass around Uncle Raymond's grave was dead now, brown, brittle, curling up from the dirt. The flowers my mother had left were shriveled husks, and the ground really had sunk. About 2 inches, maybe more, like the earth was exhaling slowly. I crouched down, trying to breathe through my mouth. The smell hit me anyway. Rot, wet wood, and something sour underneath it. Then I heard it again, clearer this time. Thump. Not random. Measured. 3 beats. Pause. 3 again. I pressed my palm to the ground. The dirt vibrated. I yanked my hand back and stumbled to my feet. A voice came from behind me. "Shouldn't be here. I turned fast." The groundskeeper, old man Harlan, stood by the gate with a flashlight. His face was gray and sweaty, shirt half unbuttoned. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He shined the light on me. "You're the nephew?" I nodded. He motioned toward the grave. "Don't stand there." "Ground's bad." "What do you mean bad?" He hesitated. "You feel it, don't you?" "The heat. It's everywhere." He shook his head. "Not like this, not here. Heat's coming from under." I followed him toward the maintenance shed. The air felt thicker the closer we got, heavy and damp like breathing through fabric. Inside, the smell of gasoline and dead grass filled my nose. He rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a long metal rod, rusted at the tip. "What's that for?" I asked. "Used to check for sinkholes," he muttered. "Watch." We went back to the grave. He jabbed the rod into the dirt near the headstone hard. It slid in too easily, no resistance. He frowned and pushed deeper. Then the ground hissed. A low, wet sound like air escaping from under the soil. Steam rose up, faint but visible, curling around his arm. He dropped the rod, stepping back fast. "Christ almighty, what is that?" He didn't answer. Just stared at the dirt like he could see through it. Then quietly, "They buried him wrong." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Harlan looked over his shoulder. "That man didn't belong in that ground. He was my uncle." He wiped his mouth. "I've been keeping this place 31 years. I know where the soil's soft, where it's dry, where it's safe to dig. That plot," he pointed at the grave, "wasn't empty. The night felt heavier suddenly." "What?" Preacher said, "Dig it anyway." Said, "Don't ask questions." He looked at me, eyes shining in the flashlight beam. "You tell me, boy, what kind of man gets buried in another man's grave?" A sound cut through the silence. A slow creak, wood bending, then thump. We both froze. The dirt shifted slightly. Just a tremor, like something pushing from below. Harlan whispered, "You hear it?" "Yeah." He took a step closer, holding the flashlight out. "You hear it too." The beam shook. The ground moved again. A small puff of dirt lifted from the surface. He turned to me, eyes wide. "Go! What? Go now!" Before I could move, the dirt split. A crack opened straight across the middle of the grave, maybe 2 feet long. From the gap, a rush of hot, foul-smelling air hit us. The flashlight flickered, and from that black slit came the sound of breathing. Slow, wet, shallow. Harlan stumbled back, crossing himself. God forgive us, I couldn't look away. I could see movement, something shifting just below the surface. Fingers maybe, or worms, or both. Then something tapped the flashlight out of his hand. Darkness swallowed us. I ran. I didn't even think. Just bolted toward the car, heart slamming in my chest. I didn't stop until I hit the gravel. When I looked back, Harlan was still by the grave, crouched low, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then the ground collapsed. It didn't cave in like dirt should. It just opened. A black mouth swallowing everything, flowers, soil, headstone. Harlan screamed once before the sound cut off. The hole sealed itself, smooth again, like nothing had ever been there. I drove home half blind, windows down, trying not to throw up. The steering wheel burned against my palms. My reflection in the rearview looked pale and wrong. My ears rang with that same rhythm. Thump, thump, thump. When I reached the driveway, my porch light was flickering. The front door was open an inch. I stepped inside, calling for my mother, but the house was dark. The smell hit me before I found her. Flowers rot in that thick, sticky heat again. The living room looked untouched except for the photo on the mantel. Uncle Raymond's funeral portrait. Someone had turned it around to face the wall, and beside it sat a folded piece of paper, my name written in shaky pen. I unfolded it slowly. Don't let them open it again. It's not him in there anymore. I dropped the paper. My hands were slick with sweat. The air hummed, faint and electrical. Then from outside, 3 knocks. I turned toward the front door. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm as before. I forced myself to look through the peephole. The glass was fogged with condensation, but I could make out a shape standing on the porch. Too tall, shoulders hunched, something dripping down the front of its shirt. It leaned closer, whispered, "Too hot." The door creaked inward. I slammed it shut and locked it, backing away. My pulse felt like thunder in my skull. I ran to the kitchen, grabbed the phone, but the line was dead. The power cut out a second later, the fan, the fridge, all of it. Then from the hall, footsteps, slow, wet, bare. I pressed myself against the counter. The steps grew closer until they stopped right at the doorway. A voice, raspy and cracked, said, "You shouldn't have come back to see me." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. The air thickened again, pressing down on me. That impossible heat radiating from nowhere. When I finally looked up, the hallway was empty. The footsteps started again, this time on the porch, then fading down the steps out toward the road. I ran to the window. The street shimmered like a mirage. In the distance, under the streetlight, I saw him, Uncle Raymond, shirt clinging to his skin, bare feet black with dirt, moving slow toward the church. I watched until he disappeared into the dark. I didn't follow that night. I couldn't, but I heard the knocking again, over and over, until morning. 3 beats. Pause. 3 more. Each one softer, farther away. And when the sun came up, the air still didn't move. Not one leaf, not one breath of wind. The whole world felt like it was holding something in. By the afternoon, the police found Harlan's flashlight and shoe near the graveyard fence. No sign of him. Reverend Paul was still missing. That evening, Travis showed up at my door. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Eyes red, skin shiny with sweat. "You saw him too, didn't you?" he asked. I didn't answer. He nodded like he already knew. "He's not staying put. Said he was coming back for us, and why us? Because we saw him move." That night we sat in the car across from the church watching the graveyard through the heat haze. The moon was red, fat, wrong. The soil looked darker around Raymond's grave again. "Maybe we dig," Travis said quietly. "You're insane. He's not gonna stop. We don't even know what's down there." He looked at me. "Then we better find out." We waited until midnight. The air was still and heavy, the kind that presses into your lungs and doesn't let go. The dirt around the grave shimmered faintly like it was breathing. Travis grabbed a shovel from the truck bed. I took one too, hands shaking. The first scoop of soil came up hot, so hot I dropped it, gasping. Steam rose from the ground. We kept digging. Every foot down, the smell grew worse. Sweet and wet and human. Travis gagged, covering his mouth. "Christ." "Keep going," I said. Then the shovel hit something solid, wood. He looked at me. "You ready?" I nodded, though I wasn't. We cleared the top of the coffin. The lid was cracked down the middle, the wood warped and soft. Something had pushed from inside, splintering it outward. Travis lifted the shovel, wedged it under the seam, and pried. The lid groaned open, inch by inch. I held the flashlight, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The beam trembled over the coffin's interior. It was empty. No body. The morning after, the world finally broke. Clouds rolled in before sunrise. Low, yellow-gray things that looked bruised, swollen. The sky hadn't shown a single cloud in 10 days, but now it felt heavy, ready to burst. The air was thick with the promise of rain, but it wasn't falling yet. Not yet. I sat on the porch, still in the same clothes I'd worn last night. My hands were filthy. My shoes were streaked with mud that steamed faintly, like it had come from something deeper than the ground. Travis hadn't called. His truck wasn't outside the church anymore. The cop said maybe he went out of town, but I knew better. Nobody leaves town in a heat wave. They melt where they stand. I hadn't told anyone what happened at the graveyard. Who'd believe me? The body that wasn't there. The grave that hissed. The man who walked in the night. And the message still glowing faintly on my phone. "It's too hot down here." I tried deleting it. The screen froze every time. By noon, the temperature had climbed back to 102. The heat pressed down from all sides. The sky trembled, but the rain still wouldn't come. The town felt brittle, like it was about to crack open. Then came the smell. It swept in from the direction of the church. Wet earth, rot, sulfur. I saw people on the sidewalks covering their faces, looking around like the air had betrayed them. Dogs barked, then fell silent. Birds left the trees. I knew exactly where it was coming from, so I drove. When I reached the church, the front doors were wide open. Inside, the walls were sweating, literal beads of moisture dripping down the plaster. The carpet squished under my shoes. The candles from the funeral still sat melted on the altar, nothing left but warped stubs and puddled wax. The air hummed. It was a low vibration, like something buried was alive and angry. I followed it to the back, through the hall that led to the cemetery. Every step I took, the smell grew stronger. When I pushed open the rear door, the sound hit me, hundreds of flies, buzzing like machinery. The graves were sinking, all of them, perfect rectangles of dirt sagging in the middle, pulsing with heat. Steam coiled up like breath from an open mouth. And at the center of it all, Uncle Raymond's grave had split again. The ground shimmered around it, red at the edges. I stumbled forward, heat blasting my face. The air was almost liquid, like walking into a furnace. Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't go closer," but I did. I had to, because someone was standing beside the grave. Travis. He was barefoot, shirtless, drenched in sweat. His skin was covered in streaks of mud, and his eyes were black. Not bruised, not shadowed. "Black, Travis," I called out. "You need to come with me." He didn't answer, just stared down into the hole. I stepped closer. "What are you doing?" "Listening," he whispered. "To what?" He smiled faintly, lips cracked. "You can't hear it." I could. Beneath the hum of the air, beneath the buzzing of the flies, a faint voice. It came from the ground, 100 whispers, all speaking the same 2 words. "Let us out." Travis turned to me. "They buried them alive." "What?" He laughed, short and broken. "That's what the heat is. That's why it never stops. They sealed them in, and the ground won't take them back." I shook my head. "Travis, listen to yourself." He stepped closer, his face inches from mine. His breath smelled like dirt and copper. "You felt it. You heard it. You know I'm right. I saw him, Travis. He's not Raymond anymore." "Then what is he?" Before I could answer, the ground behind him erupted. The dirt burst upward, spraying mud and roots and bone fragments. A black shape rose from the grave, tall, twisted, steaming with heat. The smell hit me like a punch. It was Raymond, or something, wearing him like a shell. His skin split along the jawline, eyes gone, mouth stretched too wide. His fingers were longer now, the nails blackened. Travis stumbled back, screaming. The thing reached for him, grabbed his arm. Flesh hissed under its grip. I lunged, shoving Travis free, but the thing moved faster than I could blink. It turned on me, jaw trembling open like it wanted to speak. And then it did, in my uncle's voice. "We can't breathe." Heat poured out of him like wind from a furnace. My eyes burned. The ground trembled. Behind us, other graves began to crack, one by one. The whispers grew louder, merging into one rising roar. "Let us out." The sky split open. It wasn't rain at first. It was steam, scalding hot, hissing down like the air itself had turned to boiling water. I screamed and stumbled backward, covering my face. The thing that used to be Raymond raised its arms to the sky, mouth gaping. The storm hit full force a second later. Cold rain. Real rain, the first in weeks. It drenched everything, the graves, the church, the road. The heat finally broke with a sound like thunder cracking the world in half. And the moment the cold touched him, Raymond fell apart. His body dissolved into mud and water, washing back into the hole. The other graves stopped sinking. The air went quiet, and for the first time in days I could breathe. I don't remember much after that, just flashes. Travis dragging me to the car, the sound of sirens, rain flooding the road. The whole graveyard steaming like a dying fire. By morning, the storm had passed. The sun came out again, soft, weak, almost kind. The cops said they found 2 open graves and evidence of vandalism. They said the storm must have caused the sinkholes. They didn't find Raymond's body. They didn't find Harlan's either. A week later, the town cooled down. The power came back. The news called it the heat wave that broke the record and the town's spirit. People smiled again. Laughed again. But every time I walked past the church, I could still smell the dirt. Damp, heavy, wrong. Travis left town. Didn't tell me where. The Reverend's replacement held a service the next Sunday, and I sat in the back pew. It felt strange being there again, the same space where everything started. Halfway through the sermon, I heard something, soft, subtle, from beneath the floorboards. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 more. That night I dreamed of Raymond. He was standing in the rain, looking cleaner, younger. He said nothing, just stared with that same tired sadness. Then he lifted his hand, pointing to the horizon. Behind him, the ground rippled like water. Shapes moved beneath the surface, faces pressing up from below the soil, eyes open, mouths moving silently. When I woke, my skin felt hot again. The air was thick. The fan had stopped working. My phone buzzed once on the nightstand. A new message. Unknown. It's cooling off. Thank you. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. My reflection looked strange in the black glass. Darker somehow. Softer around the edges. Then the screen flickered, and for a moment it wasn't my face staring back, it was his. By morning, the papers said the storm had shifted north, toward the next county. The forecast predicted another heat wave. The kind that breaks things open. I thought about that all day. About what the old man Harlan said. That plot wasn't empty. I wonder if the next one isn't either. Sometimes, when the wind dies and the air turns heavy again, I swear I can smell it. That sweet, wet rot rising from the dirt. And if I listen close enough, beneath the hum of the cicadas and the rustle of the trees, I can still hear them, thump, 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 asking the same question over and over again. When will it rain again? The first thing I noticed was how quiet the ocean sounded that night. Usually the waves at Crescent Cove never stop. That endless rhythm, rising and falling, the kind of sound that's supposed to calm you. But when I stepped over the dunes and saw the glow of the bonfire in the distance, the water wasn't crashing. It was whispering. Soft. Too soft. Like it was holding its breath. It was late August, that limbo between summer and whatever comes after, and the air was heavy with salt and humidity. My friends had been camping on the beach since sunset. I was late like always. Work ran over. Traffic on the causeway was backed up, and by the time I parked and hiked down through the sand, the night had already swallowed most of the sky. The fire was the only thing alive out there, a dull orange flicker surrounded by shapes moving and laughing. I recognized the voices. Mason, drunk and loud. Kayla's high, easy laugh. Zoe humming along to the little Bluetooth speaker sitting in the sand. When they saw me, Mason lifted his beer and yelled, "Look who finally showed up." The ghost himself. Yeah, I said, kicking off my shoes. The sand was still warm. You guys started without me. That's the point, Zoe grinned. It's our last beach night. Gotta end summer, right? They'd set everything up. Coolers, a blanket, some driftwood piled behind them. The fire crackled, throwing sparks into the wind. Behind it, the ocean stretched out like a wall of black glass. No moon tonight, just stars that looked like they were sinking. I dropped onto the blanket next to Kayla. She handed me a drink. Her hair smelled like coconut and smoke. Still can't believe we're leaving next week, she said softly. Yeah. I looked out toward the water. It doesn't feel real. For a while it was normal, easy. We told the same stories, played the same songs, pretended like we weren't all about to scatter across the country. Mason threw more wood on the fire. The smoke burned sweet from the driftwood, but every so often a sour smell drifted through, like seaweed left too long in the sun. I didn't say anything at first. I thought maybe the tide had dragged up something dead. Then I saw it. Halfway between the bonfire and the waterline, something dark sticking out of the sand. It was maybe 50 feet away, right where the wet sand met dry. The firelight caught just enough of it to show a rough, rounded shape. Mason, I said. What's that? He squinted. What? That, I pointed. He leaned forward. Probably driftwood. Chill, man. But it didn't look like driftwood. It was smooth. Too smooth. I got up. Dude, it's nothing, Mason called, but I didn't stop. The closer I got, the more I could see. The thing was buried at an angle, half submerged in sand. Not wood, bone. Pale and curved, maybe 2 feet long, tapering at one end. It looked like a rib. No, bigger than that. Too big. My stomach turned. "Hey," I called back. "You sure this is a good spot to camp?" "Why?" Zoe called. "Because there's something." I stopped. Because the tide was coming in. I hadn't noticed it before, but the water was closer now, rolling in faster than it should. And with it came a low vibration under my feet, like something deep beneath the sand was moving. Then a wave broke, farther up the shore than it should have reached, soaking my ankles. When it pulled back, I saw it had uncovered more of the thing. It wasn't one bone. It was a rib cage. I stumbled back, heart pounding. The sand shifted as the water drained away, and the shape beneath became clearer. A long, twisted frame that didn't belong to anything I knew. "Holy shit," I yelled. Everyone came running, laughing at first, then slowing when they saw my face. "What the hell?" Zoe whispered. Mason crouched down. What is that, a whale?" "Whales don't wash up here," Kayla said. "And that's too small." "Too small?" Mason frowned. "It's huge. Not for a whale." We all stood there, staring. The fire popped behind us. The sound of the waves came in sharper now. Still low, but more deliberate, like the ocean was trying to keep rhythm with our breathing. Then Zoe said, "We shouldn't touch it." Mason rolled his eyes. "It's just a skeleton. Then why's it buried?" I said. He grabbed a stick and started poking at it. "Mason, relax, I just want to see how big it is." He scraped the sand away from one end and something pale rolled loose. It wasn't bone. It was a shell. Thin, translucent, almost glowing under the firelight. Kayla crouched to look closer. "It's beautiful." Zoe reached out before I could stop her. The second her fingers brushed it, the wind shifted. The smell hit us. Brine, decay, metal. The fire sputtered. The ocean went silent. Then the tide surged forward again, harder this time, washing over the bones. The water was ice cold, numbing. When it receded, the shell was gone, and so was the ribcage. The sand was smooth where it had been. Like it was never there, we all stood there, dripping and stunned. "What the fuck was that?" Mason said. "Let's go," Zoe whispered. "Let's just go." "No," Kayla said. "We're not leaving. It's probably like quicksand or something. You guys are overreacting." But she was shaking. None of us wanted to be the first to admit it, but the air had changed. The heat was gone. The wind was colder now, coming straight off the ocean. And it carried a sound, and faint but constant. A low, steady humming, like a voice buried under the water. We tried to play it off, to make jokes, to drink more and talk louder. But the laughter kept dying too fast. Every time I looked toward the water, I swore I saw movement just beneath the surface. Something pale, gliding parallel to the shore. At one point, the Bluetooth speaker cut out mid-song. Static filled the air. Then just for a second, a different sound came through, not music, a whisper. It was faint, but I heard it clearly. "My name." "Turn it off," Zoe said. "I didn't." Mason started, but the speaker clicked off by itself. The fire cracked, shooting sparks toward the water. And for the first time that night, I realized the tide had crept halfway up the beach. We were surrounded. Kayla grabbed her bag. "Okay, seriously. Let's pack it up." Mason looked annoyed. "What, you're scared of the ocean now?" Zoe glared at him. "Something's wrong. Look at it." We all turned. The water had stopped moving. Completely. No waves, no foam. Just a flat, glassy surface stretching out forever, reflecting our firelight like a mirror. And in that reflection, we weren't 5 people anymore. There were 6. For a few seconds, none of us moved. 5 shadows on the sand staring at the 6th reflection trembling on the surface of the water. The bonfire popped behind us. The sound should have grounded me, but it only made the silence heavier. I counted again. Me, Mason, Zoe, Kayla, and Ben. 5. That was it. Yet in the mirrored glow of the sea, there was another shape. Just at the edge of the circle of light, taller than any of us, standing completely still. Then the wind snapped and the reflection broke apart. Waves rolled in again like nothing had happened. "Did you see that?" I asked. Mason forced a laugh. "Yeah, sure." "The ocean ghost." Zoe didn't laugh. She was staring at the water with her lips pressed tight like she was holding something in. Kayla rubbed her arms. "Can we please just go back to the cars?" Ben, quiet until then, said softly, "Look." The tide had reached the fire pit. The logs hissed where the foam touched them. The flames shrank, spitting salt. A ribbon of smoke curled toward the dunes. "It's not even high tide yet," I muttered. Mason kicked at the water. "It's the wind. It pushes it up sometimes, but there was no wind now. Only that slow, dragging undertow sound like the sea was inhaling. I crouched and pressed my palm to the wet sand. It was cold enough to sting. Beneath it, a faint vibration pulsed, steady, rhythmic. "Like a heartbeat, feel that?" I asked. Zoe nodded. "It's under us." The next wave came higher, splashing against our ankles. It left streaks of black kelp coiled in the sand. One strand brushed my leg, sticky and warm. I looked down and froze. It wasn't kelp, it was hair, long, dark, tangled in seaweed and half buried under the foam. Jesus Christ. I stumbled back. Kayla screamed. Mason cursed and kicked at the sand, uncovering more of it. An arm, pale and slick, fingers curled tight around a shard of shell. Ben gagged. "Is that a body?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say no. I couldn't say anything. The tide crept higher, washing over the arm, and when it receded, the hand twitched. "Just once. Back up," Zoe whispered. Back up we did. None of us took our eyes off it. The next wave came in harder and completely covered the body. When it rolled away, the sand was smooth again. Gone. Mason broke first. "Nope, I'm done. We're leaving." He snatched the car keys from his backpack. We started grabbing things, stumbling over the blanket and the cooler. The fire sputtered one last time and died in the rising water. The beach went black. Our flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the dark. Every time the beams hit the surf, I thought I saw something just beneath the surface, arms, faces, movement that didn't match the waves. Zoe kept whispering, "Don't look at them. Don't look at them," like a prayer. The sand felt heavier with every step, like it was clinging to our feet. Then Kayla said, "Where's Ben?" We all stopped. He'd been right behind me. "Ben!" Mason yelled. His voice bounced off the dunes and came back thinner. Nothing, then faintly from the waterline. "Guys." We swung our flashlights toward the sound. Ben stood knee-deep in the surf, staring down. "There's someone out here," he said. "Get back." I shouted. He didn't move. The waves around him were glowing faintly now, bluish like bioluminescence. But the light wasn't from plankton. It was coming from under the water, from shapes moving toward him. "Ben, come on!" Zoe screamed. He turned then, face pale in the light. "They're saying my name," and the water swallowed him. Mason dove in after him. I heard the splash, then the sucking roar as the tide rushed out. For 1 second, both of them were visible in the beam of my flashlight. Mason reaching, Ben's hand breaking the surface, then the light snapped off. Kayla was crying. Zoe grabbed her wrist. "Run," she said. "Run now." We ran up the beach over the dunes, breath tearing at our throats. The sand slid underfoot like it didn't want to let go. Behind us, the ocean roared. When we reached the parking lot, the air felt different. Thinner, hotter, wrong. The only car left was Mason's. The others were gone. "How?" Kayla gasped. "He drove. I don't know," I said. "Just get in." The doors slammed. I jammed the key in the ignition. Nothing. The dashboard stayed dark. Zoe hit the glove compartment over and over. "Come on, come on!" Kayla was in the back seat sobbing quietly. I tried again. Still dead. Then from the speakers, a faint hiss. A voice under static. "Don't leave." Zoe yanked the AUX cord free. The sound stopped. We sat there listening to our breathing. The far-off thunder of waves. Then the headlights flickered on by themselves. For a split second, they illuminated the dunes. Ben stood there. His clothes were dripping, his head tilted slightly to one side. His eyes reflected the light like wet sand. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. He raised his hand slowly, like he was about to wave. And then he smiled. It wasn't Ben's smile. Zoe grabbed the wheel. "Go." The car lurched to life without me turning the key. I slammed it into reverse, tires spinning on the sand. The headlights caught him again, closer this time. He was mouthing something. The same 2 words over and over. "Stay here." I floored it. We hit the road hard, the back tires fishtailing on the gravel. The beach vanished behind us, swallowed by darkness. No one spoke for miles. The road hugged the coastline, empty and shining with mist. Every so often, the radio hissed, little bursts of whispering static that sounded like waves hitting shore. By the time we reached the gas station near the highway, it was past 2 a.m. The lights inside buzzed fluorescent white. The sudden normality of it almost made me dizzy. The clerk stared when we walked in. 3 soaked, sand-covered kids. Rough swim? He joked weakly. Zoe leaned on the counter. Can you call the police? He frowned. What for? There was an accident, I said. At Crescent Cove, 2 people. My voice cracked. 2 people went under. He picked up the phone, started to dial, then stopped. You sure it was tonight? He asked. What do you mean was? He pointed at the small TV behind him. The local news was playing. A headline scrolled across the bottom. Search ends for missing campers at Crescent Cove. Declared lost at sea. August 21st, 2013. Kayla's knees buckled. It's not possible, I whispered. The clerk looked at us funny. You okay? That happened 12 years ago. We left without another word. Outside, the air smelled like salt again. My phone buzzed, a new message from an unknown number. Ben, you left me, I dropped it. The screen cracked on the asphalt, light bleeding out. Zoe picked it up, stared at it. It's not real, she said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. Kayla wrapped her arms around herself. I want to go home. We are, I said, though I had no idea where home was anymore. The highway was empty. The headlights stretched into a tunnel of fog. Zoe drove. I sat in the passenger seat watching the rearview mirror. Every few minutes, the mist behind us pulsed, flashes of blue like light refracting underwater. Kayla whispered from the back seat, Do you hear that? At first, I thought she meant the tires on wet asphalt. Then I heard it too, a faint hum beneath the engine noise, rising and falling like waves. It grew louder the farther we drove. Zoe turned up the radio to drown it out, but the station faded, replaced by static. The hum shifted, became words again. Names, then quieter. Ben Miller, Mason Clark, Zoe Reed. The car jerked as Zoe swerved. Turn it off. I slammed my fist against the console. The sound stopped, but when I looked out the window, I saw the ocean again. It shouldn't have been there, the road should have curved inland, but the water was running right beside us. Black and endless, keeping pace with the car, and something was moving in it. A shape rose out of the waves. Tall, narrow, shimmering like wet glass. For a heartbeat it looked human. Then the light from the headlights hit it and it dissolved back into foam. The hum returned, louder now, rattling the mirrors. Kayla covered her ears. Make it stop. Zoe pressed the gas pedal to the floor. The engine screamed. Ahead, a red glow appeared in the fog, taillights. Another car. Relief flooded me until I realized the lights weren't moving. They were floating. We passed them slowly, and I saw the rusted shell of Mason's car half buried in seaweed, headlights still burning underwater. Keep driving, I whispered. The road ended at a chain-link fence. Beyond it, nothing but dunes and sea. Zoe slammed the brakes. The hum cut out. For a moment, there was just the hiss of cooling metal and our ragged breathing. Then the engine died. Kayla reached for the door handle. We can walk, don't. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Stay in the car. But she was already outside, stumbling toward the dunes. Kayla. I ran after her. The air felt thick, heavy with moisture. The sand glowed faintly blue under the mist. When I caught up, she was standing at the top of the dune, staring down. The beach. The bonfire. The same spot. It was all there again. Fire crackling, shadows moving. The skeleton half buried in the tide. Our own voices echoed from below. Laughter looping on repeat. Kayla turned to me, tears streaking her face. We never left. Something moved in the water. The reflection figures turned toward us. Zoe screamed from behind. The ground shook. The ocean rose in a single silent wall of black water that hung there for an impossible moment before collapsing forward. I grabbed Kayla's hand and ran. The wave hit like concrete. Salt filled my mouth, my lungs. I felt the pull of it dragging me backward, down, into the cold. Through the bubbles I saw faces. Ben, Mason, all of them. Eyes open, mouths forming words I couldn't hear. Then darkness. I woke up on the beach, alone. The fire was out. The sky was pale gray, dawn breaking. My clothes were dry, the sand around me untouched except for my footprints. The ocean looked normal again. Lazy waves, gulls crying, sunlight on the water. My phone buzzed beside me. The beach was almost beautiful again by morning. Sky washed, soft blue, air finally cool enough to breathe. You'd never guess what the night had done to it. Waves rolled in lazy and harmless, flattening the footprints before I could even prove I'd been there. People started showing up early. Families, joggers, a few surfers dragging boards through the sand. Their laughter sounded distant, tinny, like it didn't belong to the same world I was in. I kept waiting for one of them to notice me. No one did. I walked down to where the bonfire had been. There was no trace of it. Not the black circle of ash, not the melted bottles or scattered cans. Just smooth, pale sand stretching toward the water. The spot felt wrong, though. Too perfect, too clean. Like someone had scraped away the surface and replaced it with something new. I crouched and brushed my hand over the sand. It was cool to the touch, but there was something underneath it. Hard. I dug with my fingers until they hit something solid. It was a phone. My phone. The same case. The same crack on the corner, but dry, polished, not a speck of sand inside. When I turned it over, the screen lit up. One new message. Zoe. You're the only one left. I dropped it. The screen went black instantly, like it had been waiting for me to see that single line. The ocean hissed softly, pushing closer. I stepped back until the water brushed my toes. It felt colder than it should have, like ice under sunlight. For a second, I thought I saw something beneath the surface again. Shadows moving parallel to the shore, same as before. Then they were gone. Maybe they were never gone. I started walking, following the curve of the beach toward the rocks. That's where we used to climb when we were kids, before we knew how dangerous the tide could be. The sound of the waves echoed between the stone walls, sharper here, almost like whispering. Halfway up, I found something wedged in a crack, a piece of driftwood, smooth and pale. When I pulled it free, I realized it wasn't wood. It was bone. Small. Maybe from a hand. There was something carved into it. Lines, shapes that almost looked like letters, but not quite. When I tilted it toward the light, I could read just one word scratched deep. Stay. The sound of laughter drifted down the beach again. I turned and saw the family packing up their things, the boy still playing near the water. He was drawing something in the wet sand with a stick. From where I stood, I couldn't make out what it was. But the longer I looked, the more it felt like he wasn't drawing it alone. Something was moving beside him. Not visible, not exactly, but the sand rippled where there should have been empty air. Hey, I shouted, starting down the rocks. Hey, get away from there! The boy looked up startled, then turned toward the water and froze. I hit the beach running. The wind kicked up, throwing salt into my eyes. When I reached him, the ocean had already crawled higher, ankle-deep swirling gray. Come on, I said, grabbing his arm. You need to... The water surged. For a moment, it rose higher than both of us, a wall of glass bending light, and through it I saw faces. Zoe, Mason, Kayla, Ben. Their eyes open, mouths moving silently. Their hands pressed against the other side like they were trying to break through. The boy screamed. Then the water collapsed. When it receded, the beach was empty. No footprints, no stick, just me, standing knee-deep in the tide, shaking. I stared at the horizon until I couldn't tell where the sky ended and the sea began. It was all the same color, pale, endless, hungry. The air tasted like metal. I wanted to believe I was in shock, hallucinating, dreaming. But the phone in my pocket buzzed again, hard enough to make me flinch. Unknown. The tide remembers everyone. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I drove north, following the coastline. Every beach I passed looked the same. Clean, calm, too perfect. At one stop, a man was setting up a grill with his kids. When I asked him if he'd heard of Crescent Cove, he nodded. Used to camp there, he said. They closed it off years ago. Sinkholes or something. Sinkholes? Yeah. Whole section of sand dropped after that storm back in 2013, buried half the campsite. No one ever rebuilt it, I tried to smile. Guess I got turned around. He grinned back, friendly, normal. Be careful out there. Tide's been weird lately. That night I pulled into a motel about 20 miles inland. The air was still thick with salt, even this far from the coast. The clerk gave me a key and said, We don't get many this time of year. You heading to the beach? I hesitated. Something like that. Room 7 smelled faintly of mildew and cheap bleach. I turned on the TV for noise, but every channel was static. The digital clock beside the bed blinked 12-hour over and over. I turned on my phone again. The wallpaper had changed. It was a photo of the bonfire from last night. All 5 of us laughing, smoke curling up into the stars. Except now there was a 6th shape behind us, half seen, tall, face blurred by motion. When I blinked, the image was gone. Sometime after midnight, I woke to a sound, waves, faint but steady, rolling somewhere impossibly close. I sat up. The carpet beneath my feet was damp. I opened the door. The parking lot was gone. In its place, a strip of sand stretched down into black water. The motel sign flickered weakly behind me, casting red letters across the waves. I stepped forward, heart hammering. The sea reached up to meet me, gentle as breath, and in that rippling reflection, I saw all of them standing there again. Zoe, Mason, Kayla, Ben smiling like nothing had ever gone wrong. They raised their hands together. Palms out, stay, they said in one voice. The water surged. I woke at dawn lying on dry carpet. The motel lot was normal again. Cars, asphalt, no ocean. For a few seconds I thought maybe it really had been a dream. Then I saw the footprints, wet, sandy, leading from the doorway to the bathroom sink. Inside, the mirror was fogged over. 4 words written in the condensation. We kept your name. The drain gurgled softly. I looked down. Salt water pooled in the basin, swirling slow. When I reached to turn off the tap, something brushed my fingers from inside the drain. Cold, smooth, familiar. A shell. I checked out before sunrise, left the key on the counter. The clerk didn't look up when I said goodbye. Outside, the air was warm again. The radio in my car crackled as soon as I turned the key. For a few seconds, nothing but static. Then a voice, low, almost buried. Mine, the water keeps the names. I turned it off. The sound didn't stop. It kept whispering under everything. The hum of the engine, the hiss of the tires. When I reached the edge of town, I saw the ocean again, just barely visible between the dunes. The light hit it at an angle that made the surface shimmer like glass, and I realized it wasn't reflecting the sky. It was reflecting me, just me, standing alone on a beach that had never existed. They say if you camp near Crescent Cove now, you can hear it at low tide. The faint sound of a bonfire crackling just out of sight. Voices laughing, calling names you almost recognize. Sometimes, if the water's still enough, you'll see shapes beneath the surface. Don't go closer. Don't answer when they call. And whatever you do, when the tide pulls back and leaves the sand smooth as glass, don't pick up what it leaves behind.